Got it. Okay. Mm, okay. Okay, we are good to go. Good evening. I can't see your face. I can't see you. Good evening. Where are you watching from? Can I see your face? Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right. We're waiting for others to join in, so we'll begin in a bit. Okay. Good evening, Cleanway Otiko. Good evening. Welcome on board. Good evening. Welcome on board. Please, where are you joining us from?
Okay, I'm coming from Lagos.
Lagos. Okay. Welcome on board. Welcome. Um,
Thank you.
the person Glow is your name Glory?
My
Um,
name is Gloriana.
Gloriana. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Good to have you on board. Please, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Minnesota, St. Paul.
Wow. Nice to have you on board. Nice to have you on
Thank you
board.
for having me.
Okay, we'll be beginning shortly, so let's enjoy the music and we'll begin in some minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, our guest just joined us.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, Dr. Ada.
Hi, good evening, Melody. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Good to have you on
Okay.
board. I
Yeah.
don't know. Do we wait a bit or do we just kick into it?
I don't know. I would like to see if I could get the meeting ID because I'm trying to log in. The ID and the
Oh,
password. I'm trying to log in from my laptop so that I could
oh,
be able
okay.
to share
I
this.
think you can check. I sent you on IG. I think Catherine sent on WhatsApp. I sent you on IG just a few minutes ago.
Okay.
I
Let me
sent it
check.
again. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't think I saw it. Let me check.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, I've seen it. Thank you.
You've seen it. Okay. You're
Yeah.
welcome, ma'am.
So I'll be joining again through that.
All right. That's fine. That's fine.
So once I join, you make me co-host.
Yeah, I did that already.
All right.
But when you
All
join, I'll
right.
do that again. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ma'am. Stop my video. Nice. I have to stop the video a bit. Okay, Mom Chicken, so we have you on, right? Okay. Okay. Um, so hi everybody. Let's get into it. Good evening, everybody. Good evening once again. Please, if you can hear me, let me know. If you can hear me, let me know. Is it clear? Can everyone hear me? Um, um, oh, Dr. Ada, are we good? Please, can everyone hear me? I don't know.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay. All right, thank you. Before Dr. Ada starts up, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for basically being a part of this journey with us. It's not been an easy one, but it's been a good one. I'm really grateful to everyone. This is the grand finale of Showtime Conference 2021, and if it's happening, it's because you made it happen. So I'm really grateful to everyone for turning up every night and through every session that we had. Thank you so much. I am really grateful. God bless you. And while it's the last night for the conference, I want us to get ready to learn, to unlearn and relearn, because we have two amazing doctors who will be speaking to us tonight. So please sit back and enjoy tonight's session. Thank you so much. Welcome on board again. My name is Thompson Melody Chinyere, and I am your host. Thanks for joining in. Dr. Ada, are we good to go? I think she hasn't set up yet. Okay, I've made you co-host, so I think we're good to go. Okay. Um, Dr. Ada, are you there? Here you go, darling. You're welcome. Honestly, I don't know if she's having issues. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but there's an echo. Okay, I think it's better now. Okay, it's mute. Hello, Dr. Ada. It's actually very low. I think we can hear you, but it's very low from my end. At least it's very, very low. I don't think we can hear you. It's really low from here. Please, can everyone hear Dr. Ada? Is it clear from your end?
No, I can't hear
No.
her.
Okay, we can hear you, ma'am. We can hear you. Oh, okay.
How about now?
Okay, it's kind of better now.
Okay.
Is everyone fine? Can we all hear her now? Please, can we all hear her now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good now. It's
Hope
better.
it's not echoing.
No. It's fine now.
Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
can they see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. All
Mm.
right. I think we can. Can we begin?
We can keep.
Very, very
Sure, we
quick.
can. Yes, we can. Zara, let me have that, please.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Showtime conference. And just like our host said, today is a grand finale for the conference. I believe it's been an amazing session. I've been joining and I've been learning and unlearning as well as relearning some of these things we already know, but it's important that we reiterate and remind ourselves once again about the process and all God expects of us, especially as women. So today I'm going to be talking about stress and resilience. Stress and resilience. And it's a very interesting and important topic because in today's age, a whole lot of us ladies, we deal with um let me say the female of today's generation is not the female that existed like in the 20th century or in the 18th century, because there's been a whole lot of changes that has occurred. So the woman today is more encumbered with a lot of challenges compared to the last time. More women are no longer just mothers.
Yep.
We are also mothers, we are wives, we are sisters, we are daughters, we are CEOs and found in the boardroom, we are almost everywhere. Now, women are going into different sectors that naturally you wouldn't find women. Like today, you see women as pilots, you see women in the medical field, you see women in the engineering field, and the ability to withstand all this and still become who God wants you to become. It's not a small feat. It's something that demands resilience. So the 21st century woman is supposed to be, or the 21st century woman that is going to go places and that is going to outlive her impact, make impact and outlive it. A woman that is going to be able to withstand stress and resilience. So that's the essence of today's topic. So at the end of today's session, it's expected that we are able to understand the concept of stress and resilience as participants. We are expected to know how not to deal with stress and also how to deal with stress. And then we're expected to understand how to build resilience, because it's not like the challenges are stopping. There's still more things coming up. Now you have to also maintain like your identity in the social media space. So it keeps getting tougher, it keeps getting more challenging as a woman, and you have to understand all this and still become that balanced woman that God expects of you. So my text, my source of today's presentation is not just, I'm not just going to be talking based on medical or scientific knowledge. We'll also be basing our foundation from the scripture. And I'll really like it if we could also make this engaging. If there's someone that could help me read the scriptures or just put it up in the chat box so that people can see these passages of the Bible, it will be quite engaging so that we'll all know that we are all together in it. My text, the first scripture is from Isaiah chapter 40, from verse 28 to 31.
Okay.
Isaiah chapter 40, probably I'll just take that, then someone else can take the other scriptural passages if someone is there. Isaiah
Okay.
chapter 40 from verse 28. So that's the NLT translation. And it says that have you never heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weary. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not faint. So what really caught my attention there is the fact that even young men will fall in exhaustion and youths will become weak and tired. And you know that the period of youth, the period of being young is like the highest is the zenith of strength. So if people that are expected to be in the prime of their strength, in the prime of their power, in the prime of their when it comes to everything, your youth is the period of your shining at that period of time. It's not when you're old that you're expected to have that energetic ability and vibe. So the Bible is saying that a time will come that even young people will fall in exhaustion and become weak. But it's those that trust in the Lord that will find new strength, and they'll be able to soar high on wings like eagles. And then the next scripture, John 10:10. I don't know if anybody's there.
Okay, can read.
Okay.
It says, "The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life." That's the NLT version.
Okay. Okay, that's a rich and satisfying life. So one of the things God expects of us as Christians is that He expects that we have that rich and satisfying life. But it's not going to be easy because there's a whole lot demanding on us spiritually, professionally, financially, physically, socially, for you to be able to have that rich, satisfying life all round. That's prosperity all round. It's not something we can do by our own human strength. And then I'll read Matthew 6 before we go on. The last scripture, we'll see that later. Matthew 6:25, it says here, "That's why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear. Isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you far more valuable than they are?" So in the Amplified translation, it brought it more, and even the TPT. So we can go back and read it there. But all the scriptures just trying to show us that Jesus even foresaw that an age will come where people will be so worried about so many things. And He was trying to still let people put themselves in perspective. So I'll get to the heart of the matter. What is stress? What is stress? And it's important for us to understand that stress is a normal part of life. It's an everyday part of life. Today, every job one wants to go into or get into has some level of stress attached to it. There's no job that doesn't come with some level of stress. So it's very important that people understand that stress is not just it's not just for one big job like that. You say, oh, you're a medical doctor, that's the stressful job. No, even if you're about to be a mother, it's stressful. If you're a wife, there's a level of stress attached to it. Whatever you're doing is a natural part of life. And it's also important that we acquaint ourselves with this important quality in terms of resilience. We're not just talking about stress alone, we're talking about resilience. So how can we have the best quality of life amidst having a stressful world? And it's funny and interesting that we live in an age where everything that should make life less stressful has been provided for us, yet we still have a very stressful world. And there's a survey that was done in the British Medical Association, the journal, as of April 2020. And that survey revealed that nearly half of doctors in the UK are suffering from a burnout syndrome. So that's just in the medical field. And this burnout syndrome, I'm sure it occurs in so many other areas, so that we've not had statistics to show that. And so there's been a rise in mental health crisis, resulting in depression and resulting also in suicide. So stress is there. It's like a natural part of life. It's not something we can run away or shy away from, but it's our ability to cope with it that matters. So also the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines stress as physical pressure and that feeling that people experience when the external demands of life exceeds their personal or social capacity within them. So it's just like when you say a child should carry a bag of rice, that child does not have the physical capacity to carry a bag of rice. So definitely that's going to be pressure, it's going to be stressful on that child. And medically, it's when the body is responding to any kind of tension. There's physical tension, mental tension, emotional tension. And usually there are two ways the body responds to this. It's either the body fights or the body flights, like fight. And when there's an adrenaline rush, the flight is like the fear, and then the fight is you're trying to fight it, like when there are diseases. So resilience is also defined as the ability to cope with difficult situations despite the challenges. Now, resilience is what God expects us to have. And this resilience, aside your own physical resilience, there's a level of resilience God gives us as children of God. That's why I read those scriptural passages. So we're going to go into types of stress. I really want to make this educational for us so that we can just make sure that we get the most out of it. There are different kinds of stress. We have the acute stress, the episodic stress, and the chronic stress. Now, the acute stress is the most common type of stress people face, and this stress could be beneficial, but sometimes if it's not handled well, it could result into the episodic and chronic phase of stress. So when examples of this stress is when you're preparing for exams, you're meeting up with deadlines, sports competitions, these are okay because they are normal parts of life, but it's now how you deal with them that matters. Then there's the episodic one when there's a continuous presence of an acute stress. The frequency is more, the persistence is more. Example, people living in highbrow areas like Lagos, Port Harcourt, we all know that living in such cities is stressful, it's not easy. And most of those people, it's been found out that most people living in those cities, they have high blood pressure. Like doctors there have already said it, that most people living in those cities, because of the frequent exposure to the stress of those cities. Then there's the chronic stress, where you're having debilitating situations like maybe a dysfunctional family, maybe a divorce, poverty, consistent financial lack, living in war-torn areas, unhappy marriages and sicknesses, and even career downturn. And I also want to say that even as women, we face stress in different forms, and all this can come to affect our mental well-being, and we have to learn how to deal with this. So there are ways, anything that causes stress is called a stressor, and there are ways this stress could come. It could either come externally or it could come internally. Usually external stress, we cannot control it, but when it comes to internal stress, we can control it. So external stressors can include major life changes, school or work, strained relationships, financial problems, some unprepared or unpredictable events, maybe like disasters, natural disasters, poor social infrastructure, like living in Nigeria or all these developing countries, and then health care givers, people that take care of old people, mentally ill people. They find out it's not easy, it's stressful, and even taking care of children too. Then urbanization, when you're living in a very like London, New York, Lagos, all those cities, they come with their own level of stress. Now, internal stressors are things that have to do with within you internally. Like women, sometimes we have to deal with a whole lot of internal stressors, fears, indiscipline, um, depression, procrastination, unrealistic expectations, perfectionism, even chronic worry and anxiety. So these things actually are the things we should be able to control. And that's why we read that scripture in Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, where Jesus was telling us that look at the birds of the air, look at the trees, and look at them. They don't worry about this. So if you can control your internal stressors, it will go a long way to know how you can handle the external stressors. So now there are signs and symptoms of stress. when a person is stressed or is stressed or under
Na
stress,
yo.
your ability to identify these goes
No,
a
ndị
long
mmadụ
way
eti
to help
you.
out. All right, there's a background noise. I don't know if the person can mute their mic. So your ability to understand and identify these symptoms goes a long way to help out. Because when someone is under stress, if you cannot identify these symptoms, the person it might be too late and the person might cave in, and that complication of breaking down and being admitted, some people pass out and then they never recover. That's where you hear of stories like heart attacks, or the person fell down and collapsed and that was the end of it. So the body as a mechanism, God has put in some level of rebound or feedback mechanism, so that when a lady is under stress, when as a woman, you're doing a lot, you're working in the family, you're working in the home, you're working in the office, you're also working in church, you're taking care of children, taking care of husband, and you also need to take care of yourself. So it's very, very important that while you're going through all these processes, you understand when your body is telling you it's time to stop, it's time to shut down, or it's time to just rest and relax. Even God himself rested. On the seventh day, he brought out the importance of resting. So we as human beings, we should never neglect the fact that the body, the mind, the spirit, they all need rest. So for the body, it's categorized into 4 equations. Sometimes some people can present with the body. Some people present only with the mind. While some people present with a combination of this, where you find out that their body, their mind, or maybe their emotions, their behavior. Some people can even present with the 4, where in their body they have headaches. Like sometimes when I notice that I'm having headaches, I just know that I'm under stress. And when I just have maybe a nap or sleeping for an hour or so, I just notice that I recuperate, I'm more relaxed, and the headache is gone. So the body can present sometimes when someone wants to identify if the person is under stress, the body can present with fatigue, breathlessness, headaches, frequent infections. Some people can fall sick and headaches. So that's some of the ways the body presents. Then for the mind, if someone notices that you're not able to concentrate, you're worrying a lot, you're having muddled thinking, hasty decisions or indecisions. Sometimes some people even have nightmares. It's enough to let them know that they just need to take a break and just go and rest or relax so that they can recover and come back. Then there's also this aspect of emotions. Some people is by their emotions. You notice that it's either they are moody or they are irritable. Some people just get angry, they get anxious, or they get apprehensive. Then you get to understand that that person is under stress. Some people might be irritable. I know of someone that whenever the person is under stress, the person gets so irritable, just have to give that person some space. Then there are people, their behavioral changes. Now they show that they are accident prone. They might be overeating or undereating. When some people are under emotional stress, sometimes they overeat. That's why you hear of some ladies go through anorexia or bulimia. Then some people have this drinking more. Some men, their own way of dousing stress. That's why you notice some men just prefer after work pressure, they go to the club so that they can drink. That's their own response. That's their own way of showing that they are under stress. So they drink more, they sleep more. Why some people are restless, some people go smoking. All these are signs and symptoms to show that a person is under stress. And when you identify this, it's now left for you to know how to deal with that. And we're going to be discussing that too, also how to deal with stress. So before I go into how to deal with stress, I want to start with how not to deal with stress. Sorry, I hope we can still hear me and we can still see my slides so that I'll just know I'm not talking to myself. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So how not to deal with stress. Before we get into how to deal with stress, it's important we know how not to deal with stress, because when you know this is the wrong way, then you can now know, okay, this is the right way. Because sometimes some people don't know that what they are doing is wrong. And they just think that, oh, they're just trying to manage stress and manage it, but they're not managing it the right way. Now, one very funny way, an interesting way most people deal with stress is by procrastinating. And procrastination never helps. Procrastination never helps because when people start procrastinating, they just begin to find out that, oh, they are pushing what they should have addressed. They are pushing it further backward, and they find out that that thing is still waiting for them. So procrastination is not the best way. In fact, it's never a good way. You're just postponing what's, just like you're postponing making it a temporary distance, but it's not a permanent solution to the problem. Then denying and avoiding the problem. That's also like procrastination. Zoning out. Some people just procrastinate and say, oh, instead of me to deal with this now, maybe you have an assignment to do in the office and you're so tired. Instead of you to deal with it, you just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you now go and watch TV, you go and watch the internet. But why don't you just do it and know you're done with it? Because there's this sense of gratification that comes when you know that you're done with a thing. So zoning out, spending large amounts of time in front of the TV and internet, we are all culprits of that. Spending a lot of time in front of the internet, maybe Facebook and all that. Not sleeping is not the right way to deal with stress. Some people, when they're under pressure, especially students, when they're preparing for exams, you find out that they won't sleep again. So all that period that they're not sleeping, they don't know that they're affecting their health. And also sleeping too much. Then there's overeating or not eating. Some people, when they're under stress, you find out that they'll just be binge eating, eating this, eating that. Then withdrawing from family, withdrawing from activities. These are not good ways to deal with stress. Withdrawing from family, because no man can exist in isolation. We need each other to survive. Then lashing out in anger. I told you that one of the signs to show that some people are under stress is that they become irritable, they lash out in anger, they begin to get violent. That's why we experience domestic violence. You see some women, their spouses, maybe their husbands are under stress. They come back home, they begin to beat their wives, they begin to lash out on everyone in the family. That man is under stress, but he's not dealing with it in the right way. Even some women are culprits. When they come back home, they lash out on everybody, they get violent. That's not the way to deal with stress. We understand that we are all under stress, but how we deal with it is what matters most. And then some people get into substance abuse, they drink, they smoke, and all that. So these are ways not to deal with stress. So we'll be getting into dealing with stress, and that is the core of today's message, dealing with stress. Because at the end of everything we've discussed today, if we can understand that how we deal with stress is what makes the difference between you as a woman who has undergone God's own process and a person who is not under God's own covering. How you deal with it is what matters, because everybody, even the Christians, the unbelievers, they all have stress. But it's now what makes the difference, or the defining factor between all of us, is how we deal with stress. So the first thing I would like to say is that in dealing with stress, your relationship with God, the place of fellowship, it's so important. It's so important. It's not something we can overrule, in the sense that it's in the place of rest, it's in the place of fellowshipping with God that we find strength, that we find the wisdom, the peace to operate in every other aspect of life. Yes, that's so true, because God is our source and he's also our sustainer. He said in the book of John that without him we can do nothing. So we should abide in him. So there's no way you can just say you just want to start your day without seeking God first. You just want to start your day, you find out that you run into a whole lot of chaos. So starting your day with God, seeking God first, making out time to fellowship with him, these are the things that puts us in the right frame of mind, in the right attitude, the right atmosphere, the environment, and so that we can be able to handle the stressors, we can be able to handle the situations that we might not be able to control. When we acknowledge God and we begin with him, he steps further, he goes in to take away the chaos, he minimizes the stress and the confusion, and he helps us. The thing about starting with God is that you're acknowledging him and saying, God, I'm surrendering my day to you. Come and help me. And because you acknowledged him, God is ever going to be willing. You invited him into your day. He's going to help you. So if as a mother or as a wife or as a woman, wherever you find yourself, whatever you're doing, one of the first things you have to do is to acknowledge God, seek God first, have a right relationship with him, maintain that place of fellowshipping with God, because God wants to give us the grace for resilience and the wisdom for a minimally stressed life. Then the next point I'd like to talk about is living purposefully. Now, when you've set the tone for a relationship with God, The next point you have to talk about is living purposefully. The thing about living purposefully is that when you're a purpose-driven woman, you're able to have the right perspective towards life. I, for one, I'm somebody that I try to make sure that I don't get involved with anything that is not attached to my purpose, because I'm already a busy person. So to waste my time in any other thing is just going to be adding more stress to my life. So I have the right perspective towards life, and I don't stress over things that I shouldn't worry about. So I set my priorities are right. I know what's important. You know what should be urgent, what you should pay attention to. And if that thing does not have an eternal perspective, I know it will not count. So I shouldn't be anxious over those things. Just like Jesus said, I should live with purpose. And if you live without purpose, it means that you're just going to live your life anyhow, and forgetting that there's eternity at the end of everything. So the quality of life a person lives is determined by how purposeful that person is. And when you live purposefully, you are more intentional about your choices. It's very obvious in the kind of choices you make. And you know, it's your choices that determine if you'll be stressed or if you'll be less stressed. So you'll be less stressed up, or it will be less stressful and more resilient when you're living purposefully. And because of that, you'll be more of a God pleaser, no longer a people pleaser. You know, a lot of people are living their lives to please people instead of pleasing God because of that. Yeah, another point is maximizing your resources, maximizing your time. So many people are out there, they're not able to maximize their time, and forget that time is the unit of measurement of life. Sometimes you just think, just look at it now. The year is already ending, and we're already in the last days of 2021. Maybe so people will be asking themselves, what have they done with their life? What have they done with their time? So time is a unit of measurement. And if you're not able to maximize your time, you end up living your life. You waste time, you waste money, you waste the relationships that God brings into your life. So living purposefully, maximizing the resources God brings into your life. These are so many of the things that God has given us so that we can be able to get the most out of our time, get the most out of our day. So many people are making mistakes because they don't have that attitude of knowing what matters most. Ask yourself with your time, are you busy? Are you just busy, or are you being productive? Are you spending time talking about your things, or are you just actually getting them done? Are you dealing with problems, or are you allowing those problems to overwhelm you? Purposeful, purposeful people make the most of their time. They make the most of their money. They also make the most of their relationships. They are not just whiling away time. So, like me, when I start my day, I just make sure that I am not just going to be doing activity. I'm being purposeful. I have a to-do list. Even money, most people that are under financial stress is because of how they wasted their money. There's no level of financial intelligence. So maximizing resources, these are some of the ways we can deal with stress. You maximize your time, you maximize your money, the resources God gives you, your treasure, and even the people around you, relationship. Maximizing people is so important for ladies, because you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a worker in the office, like someone like me, I'm a medical doctor. So if God brings help your way, like if you have a help, let those people help you. Don't just work on your own. Seek for help, ask for help. And a lot of people employ nannies, employ helpers, cooks, and all that, if you can, so that your life, your health will not break down. Then the next point is detoxifying from negative emotions. There's a whole lot of negativity in the world: worry, anger, comparison from social media, complaining. Now you have to be able to tell yourself, I'm not going to allow myself to be immersed with this negative emotion. You have to, it's not a passive thing, it's an active work, a continuous active work, because these negative emotions come to you, and you have to ask yourself that, you find out, well, why are you stressing over these things? Are you allowing it to affect your mindset, your mental health? You should be able to seize these negative emotions that want to rob you of your joy, your life, your gifts of life. When Jesus Christ said, I've come that you might have a rich and satisfying life, it's the gift that he has given us. But worry can rob you of that life. If you're worrying about your future, they said worry is the thief of tomorrow's is the thief of today's peace of mind and tomorrow's blessings. So if you're worrying, if you cannot forgive, all these toxic emotions that stop you from living the best life God wants you to live. So you have to detoxify yourself. The book I wrote, there's a chapter I wrote about it. I said detoxify, because when you don't detoxify, you already allow the negative emotions to affect and determine your life. So the next point is having an attitude of determination. Every woman should, in fact, God has already created us to be people that have an attitude of determination, because no great accomplishment happens without determination. So sometimes we have to keep going even when the going gets tough. We have to keep going. We have to never give up. We have to remember that God has given us the power and the strength to maximize. And then the last point I want to talk about is gratitude. There's no way you can be, let me say, you can be pouting, complaining, and be grateful at the same time. Joyce Meyer says you can't be pitiful and powerful at the same time. You have to choose one. So when you're grateful, when you're a grateful person, and gratitude comes from being thoughtful, in the sense that your life could have been worse, but you're grateful for the good things that God has for you. It's difficult for you to be toxic. It's difficult for you to be fearful. It's difficult for you to be worried. It's difficult for you to be anxious when you're living in gratitude. So these are the ways to deal with stress: a relationship with God, living purposefully, maximizing your resources, detoxifying from negative emotions, an attitude of determination, and finally, gratitude. So I'm going to rush into resilience, and I'm going to talk about resilience briefly, because aside dealing with stress, there's something called resilience. Resilience has to do with your ability to spring back into shape. Your ability, remember when I talked about it in the very first slide where we discussed about definitions. It says the ability to still stay under control in the midst of pressure. So resilience is a gift I said the 21st century woman needs to imbibe in her, because now gone are the ages where women, in the century, let me say back in the 15th 18th century, women were just mothers or wives. They were not really in the forefront of career, in the forefront of ministry, in the forefront of all that. But today, women are in the boardroom, women are in the mission fields, women are in the homes, women are everywhere. So you have to have an amount of resilience. And resilience is all about having coping mechanisms to deal with all the demands of life, all the challenges that come to you. Yes, God has given us all this, but there are things you put in place, structures you put in place that can help you abide with this coping mechanism. So one of the first things I'll be talking about is exercising and rest. Exercising is so important. It's something that most times we overlook, and is a free gift from God. It's underutilized, and it's something that helps us, our body. It helps our body so much. It helps our mind to clear our mind. It releases endorphins, and these are hormones that boost our mood, increase our energy. So most times I try to tell women, once in a while, just exercise, find a way to rest, and play music. These are gifts from God for coping mechanisms. So sometimes when you find out that, oh, this thing is becoming so stressful, it's becoming so stressful, it's becoming more than you can control, just find a way. Which one works for you? Is it music? Is it resting? Is it exercising? You just pick one and make sure that you're able to work with it. Another coping mechanism is organization, time management, and the use of margins. Now, I want to start with margins, because it's something that not so many people know. A margin is that internal space that you create in your day to be able to accommodate unexpected needs. Now, let me say, if I have a to-do list and I wake up by 5 a.m., I'm supposed to plan everything I'm supposed to schedule and plan everything I'm supposed to do from 5 a.m. to, let me say, 12 a.m. That's the next day. It's going to be funny if I have put something to do in every single hour of the day. Now, margin is when you leave some hours or maybe some minutes free, because you can't predict what the day will go like. Now, if you had planned something for every day, and peradventure something happens, maybe there's an emergency meeting somewhere, or you're supposed to do this, then that thing comes up, you begin to feel choked and stressed up, because you're feeling that it's encroaching into your time, something you're supposed to do. So margin is all about establishing boundaries. So you're supposed to plan like 100% of your time, and you plan 80% and leave 20%. Whatever happens, that 100%, you're able to use that 20% and rest. Or even if something happens, it can fill into that 20%. So you still have 100%. But if you plan your whole day, let me say you have a to-do list. I don't know if some of us know, like if you have an organizer or something like that, and then you plan everything from 5 a.m. every single hour, there's a schedule or something to do. And then something happens, that means you'll be operating at 120%, and that would be a whole lot for you to handle. So organization and time management is so important. And leaving margins when you're operating with established boundaries and learning to say no, that's also a form of margins, learning to say no. So organization and time, I think I've talked about time management when I talked about dealing with stress. So it's either you run your day or the day runs you. That's what Jim Rohn said. And Walt Disney said that to get started, you have to quit talking and begin doing. And then Mike Osler said, the bad news is that time flies, but the good news is that you are the pilot of your time. So the next point I'd like to talk about is humor. Humor is a strong coping mechanism. It's a strong way to build resilience. And it's been found out that people that laugh more, they have a tendency to outlive problems in their life. I'm not saying that you should make a joke of everything in life, but couples that laugh more, they stay longer and they stay stronger. So it's important for you to find a way, just release yourself. Once in a while, you have a good laugh. You just find a way to find something to laugh off, to relax, to smile. God has created humor. God has a reason why he created laughter. If not, we wouldn't be laughing. So it's been found out that it cools your stress response. It stimulates your heart, your lung. You find out the more you laugh, blood is pumped around your body. It decreases pain. It improves your mood. It reduces the depression people have. So laugh, 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 laugh. My husband is a very funny person, and most times he's the one that creates the humor in the home. So include social engagements. This is one of the things I like to say, that most people that are loners, if you're someone that likes to be alone, it might not be easy for you to handle stress. Especially if you're someone that stays isolated. And most people found out that people that stay isolated, I've read a book where someone that was isolated, the person had a tendency to commit suicide, compared to another person that was going through the same problem but was involved in social engagement and going for therapy, going for counseling. So it's important we once in a while you go for social engagements. It's not like every day you be going out for a wedding or something, every engagement you're invited to. No, but just try and make sure that once in a while you go out, you catch a breath, you like relax, rejoice with the family. When there's a need to visit people, you call people. Maintain, we're not supposed to live in isolation. None of us were created to live in isolation. So maintain that social engagement. It's for our own good. So the next point is also counseling. This is not very popular here, down here in this part of the world, but abroad, people go for counseling when they are under stress. Seek a therapist, talk to someone that can understand you, share your problems. And this has a whole lot of way of unburdening. People feel better when they talk with people that they are able to relate with. And then the next point is gratitude and giving back. I've talked about gratitude a lot in the previous one. Giving back. If you're someone that has a level of giving back, it's difficult for you to feel under so much pressure. It's been noticed that people that live their life with an attitude of giving back to society, helping people, they have this sense of purpose. So there's a decreased risk of depression. So somebody probably said that helping others is one of the way to help ourselves. It's not happy people who are thankful, it's thankful people who are happy. So it's important that we understand that to give, to build resilience in life, you have to have a purpose. You have to have something you're giving back to God. You're giving back to the people around you, and even you're giving back to yourself. Then finally, I'd like to talk about healthy diet and self-care. You know, most of the time we pay attention to a whole lot of things and forget to take care of our body. Old habits, drinking carbonated drinks, taking less fruit. We don't eat healthy, especially in this era where we have microwave meals and fast food. We think we can just one of the ways to build resilience in your body is to have a healthy diet and self-care habits. a whole lot of self-care habits. There's an online session I run on my Instagram. It's called Your Health. So it's like your health series and wellness. I try to educate people on little things that they should be just knowing about their health. They should be doing your health and dehydration and water, your health and going for massage, your health and eating sugar, salt, taking fruits, eating salads, all those things. Having a healthy diet, it has a way of improving your immunity, sustaining your energy and vitality as regards coping with stress and maintaining resilience. So in conclusion, I would like to say, as Albert Einstein said, that not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted actually counts. For me, I categorize the things that count in my life as God first, family next, and then work. Work can be missions and medicine and ministry. So you should be able to understand what counts per time for you to be able to live a minimally stress-free life. Remember, I said that stress is an everyday part of life. In fact, today I read an online message on my our doctor's chat group that a doctor committed suicide today because the person has undergone several exams. Stress, and remember, exams is a form of acute stress, and he wasn't passing. But see his own response to that stress. That's to tell you that people are being burdened. People are getting into depression. Homes are breaking apart. People are collapsing under the weight of stress. And that's the plan of the enemy. The enemy comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. But we can always have this at the back of our mind, that Jesus said, that's God said through Jesus Christ, that he has come that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And when we are under pressure, when we are under stress, remember to come to Jesus. Ask God for help. I've never seen a man that asked God for help that God will turn his back on. Jesus said, come to me, all ye who are weary and are burdened, and I will give you rest. The antidote for stress is rest. And the best place to find rest is in the hands of God and in the shoulders of God. Thank you very much. I would like to say that this is the end of my presentation, my short discussion as regards stress and resilience. I hope we've been able to get some value. And I would like to say over to you, Melody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ada. Thank you for that session.
Okay,
We
I
were
tried to keep
blessed.
to the
We were
time.
educated. Yes, you did. So I think what we should do now is for the 10 minutes left, if we can get questions, which if you have questions before our next speaker takes over. We have Dr. Natasha in the building already. Hi, Dr. Natasha. Good evening, ma'am. So before she takes over, does anyone have questions on stress and resilience? It was really an in-depth teaching. So does anyone have any question before we move on tonight? If you have a question, please let us know in the chat box. If you have a question, any questions?
Hello, Ma'am Wanda. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I wanted to ask, so it's not really a question, so something she made mention of while teaching. Said, worry is the thief of tomorrow, and I didn't get that part.
Okay, sorry, come again. I can't hear you clearly.
Okay, Ma, you said worry is the thief of tomorrow. I didn't get the latter part.
Okay, I said that worry is the thief of today's joy, and it's also the thief of your future blessings. So you can't be worrying today and be able to make progress. Like your mind will be so paralyzed. There's something they call paralysis and analysis paralysis, because you just be so anxious about today that you can't live in the present. Your mind will be so full of fear, doubt, worry, anxiety. You can't live in the present. You can't enjoy today's joy, what God has given you to enjoy today. And you might rob yourself of tomorrow because you're living in fear. So that's what worry does to us. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I can see a question on the chat box. Okay. It says, how do you measure when you have low resilience to make sure you're building it up? Is it in accordance with when stress levels are high? Okay, yes, I would have shown us there's something called the stress index, although that's a whole lot, is like highfalutin, high profile. There's something some doctors use to like gauge some people's stress index when you're under so much stress. So if your stress is within like 150 to 300, that's still moderate. If it's like if it's lower than 150, moderate. If it's 150 to 300, you're tilting into almost having a breakdown. If it's above 300. So now how do you measure when you have a low resilience? Now, if you have that level of stress and you feel like if your stress is in the moderate form or like optimal form, after taking that index and you feel like giving up, let me say like you're undergoing acute stress, you're having an exams and you feel like quitting school because of the level of work, you have to do a whole lot of research, you have to do a whole lot of assignment. You know, some people can't undergo work stress in school, mental stress. So in fact, some people fall out of medical school because they can't undergo all the stress that they have to do in medical school. So I just say that when, just like the Bible says, if your strength is small in the day of adversity, if you give up in the day of adversity, then your strength is small. So usually there's a level of stress some people go through. Like I personally, I work in a hospital. I have to come back home. I'm committed in church. I also take care of myself. I also do a whole lot of things in the home. So your ability to, if you notice that all these things are okay, but you're developing like a withdrawal, all those signs of stress I put there for the body, for the mind, for the emotions, for the behavior, you're developing all those negative signs and you're not able to handle them well, then it means that your resilience is low. Unless if you're taking the wrong things. Let me say, sometimes some women can overdrive. They'll be spending so much time in work that they're not paying attention to the home. It doesn't mean they have resilience. They have resilience, but they are taking more than they should. So that's where the place of having margins, boundaries, and all that. So what verse is that? Okay, I think that's in the Proverbs. I'll find out the exact verse. When your strength is low, then if you run in the face of adversity, then your strength is low. I'll find it out, but it's in Proverbs. Okay. I don't know if there's any other question I've missed so that the next speaker can come in. Any other question? Or probably there's none.
Yeah,
I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ada.
All
Please,
right. Thank you so
please
much.
can we celebrate Dr. Ada? Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, one more question, please. One more question, please.
Okay.
She says, how can I take care of my health and inculcate a healthy eating habit for someone who has never before considered healthy lifestyle?
Healthy lifestyle. Okay, so I like this question. It's so important because so many people down here in Africa, they have a poor health seeking behavior. And one of the beautiful things about the black man is that God has given us, in fact, it's been found out that the black man is the most resilient race amongst all the creatures of God. So an African man can survive anything. But that doesn't mean we have a very good quality of life, because you find out the white people are more health conscious, but they live longer because they have put in a whole lot of health consciousness into them. So it's important for you to begin in your mindset to first of all know that for you to live long, you have to maintain healthy habits. For this body to be able to live long, to make impact, if you're going to be someone who God is going to use, you have to take care of the body, because God uses your body. He's not using you. Even if your spirit is on fire for him, it's still your body he's going to use. That's the truth about life. So you have to, yes, thank you so much. Someone put up, if your strength is, I think that's my husband, if thou faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. So Proverbs 24:10. So you have to first of all change your mindset. If you're someone that you don't pay attention to what you eat, begin to be intentional about what goes into your mouth. Begin to be intentional about what you drink. Begin to be intentional about sleeping, exercising, all those healthy habits. In fact, you can even come on my Instagram. I've done a whole lot of series and reels. They are basic information people don't even know. Some people don't even know their blood pressure. Some people don't even know their blood group. That's to tell you how bad it is about their health status. Some people have like zero level of health consciousness. So it starts in the mind. Change your mindset towards this and then begin to set up structures. Maybe you can tell someone to keep you accountable. Allocate time, allocate money. Like me, I allocate money every week. I tell myself I must take a fruit. I must take fruits every week. I'm that health conscious. I'm that like I'm health conscious. So there are preventive measures you should take as a healthy person. Hand washing, all those things. Before we even get into that, but just do the basic one. But first of all, it starts in the mind. Tell yourself that you're going to live a healthy lifestyle from henceforth, and then you begin to work towards it. Thank you. I don't know. I hope I really answered that. And if there's any other thing, I hope I'm not running away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ada. We're really grateful. Thank you for that.
I like keeping to time when I'm speaking.
Yeah, thank you. And you really did. You really did. Thank you so much. So
bless you.
Amen. Thank you, ma'am. We're going into the next session immediately, and we have Dr. Natasha on already. Let me make her a co-host. Good evening, Dr. Natasha. I don't know if she can hear me. Dr. Natasha, good evening, ma'am. Can you hear me? Let's see. Hi, Dr. Natasha. Are we good to go? Okay, while she's coming on, let me quickly get her bio up for us. Okay, everyone, we celebrate Dr. Ada for that powerful session. I think we'll be dropping her Instagram handle so you can go follow her and get to learn more of what she does. So right into it, I want to introduce Dr. Natasha. So Dr. Natasha Aduloju Ajijola, PhD, MPH, is a public health consultant working in Nigeria and the United States. Dr. Aduloju Ajijola holds a PhD in health education and promotion from the University of Alabama and a master's in public health from Ohio University. She is the founder and CEO of Vitalera Integrated Consults Limited, an organization specializing in addressing the social determinants that shape society. She is also a research fellow for the Global Institute of Sustainable Prosperity and editor for the International Journal of Translational Medical Research and Public Health. Dr. Natasha was formerly a TL1 postdoctoral fellow funded by the Kansas University Clinical and Translational Science Institute and is Southern Regional Educational Board Dissertation Fellow. Dr. Aduloju Ajijola's research has focused primarily on social determinants of health, health inequalities, and the impact of stress on health behaviors, especially sexual health. She was the primary investigator on a groundbreaking study conducting a health needs assessment with Blackouts, addressing the health needs of African American men who have sex with men in Kansas City. She was also the primary investigator of culturally and religiously tailoring the ATA strengths-based system, a study that focused on how to increase linkage and retention of African Americans living with HIV in the linkage to care system. Dr. Aduloju Ajijola has published multiple manuscripts, worked with the industry, governmental organizations, international development agencies, and non-governmental organizations. In addition, she has mentored countless undergraduates, masters, and doctoral students. Please, everyone, let's welcome Dr. Natasha tonight to handle the topic, positioning yourself for success.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
My computer is moving just a bit slow, so I apologize for any technological issues in advance.
It's okay, ma'am.
And I want this to be a very interactive session. So since I'll be on another screen, like for the presentation, if you would be so kind, if anybody puts any questions in the chat, to please just pause me so that way we can, let's see, you can just pause me so that way we can be able to integrate the questions into our discussion. And I'm trying to share Let me share my screen. I'm pressing the share my screen button, but it's being weird. There it is. Okay. So can everyone see my screen? What's going on? Okay.
Yes, we can. It's better now.
Okay. Wonderful. So one of the things that's very, very important, and many of the things that you'll hear in my talk, you've probably heard multiple times, but it can't be understated. So before we really even get into like the specifics of my talk, as a young woman, especially young African women, it's very, you'll hear a lot of advice about what you should do, and often that you're doing things wrong. And one of the things that is the most important about positioning yourself is to be very authentic with, authentic and true to yourself about how you position yourself. Because it's very easy to try to fit yourself into a mold that you think you should be in. And the danger with trying to fit yourself into a mold that you believe you should be in is that you can then get into positions or get opportunities that don't fit who you are, who you want to be, or align with your values at all. So when you are positioning yourself, please, 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 and I can't say this enough, please ensure that you are being true to yourself and what you want. And that in all of the advice and all of the things that I'm telling you, that still remains at the core, to be authentic and true to yourself. So now that that groundwork is kind of laid, with and the importance of networking cannot be talked about enough. And often when people are networking, why is it? When people are networking, they're only considering networking with the people that are above them. So they'll go to, the madame's office, they'll go to the oga's office, and they'll do everything they can to get those connections, get those networks, to talk to those people that are above them, talk to the people that are, that have maybe been in your field for a while. But often when people are networking, they forget about the importance of networking laterally. And so that means you're networking with people who are in the same position you are in terms of career, that you're networking with not just your close friends, but networking with their cousins, like going to events where you're talking with people who maybe they're not at the top of their field today, but in 10 years, in 20 years, they'll be at the top of their field. And I don't know if you can actually see, there it is, okay. So for example, often what I've noticed since moving back to Nigeria is, people will put in the effort to meet, the oga from the top. They'll put in all this effort to meet the people that are, in these positions, have the positions of power, and they'll set up events with maybe their friends or potential colleagues, and a new opportunity will come. And they'll immediately drop the people that are at the same level as them. And time again, they'll drop the people that are at the same level as them. But the danger with that, and that's the danger with only networking vertically or only investing in the relationship vertically, is that you'll find in 15 years and 10 years, the people that you were constantly pushing to the side, the people that were constantly, you found somebody that was more important. Those people will be in positions of power, and they'll recall the fact that you didn't think that they were important when they were in a position that wasn't as glamorous. And so you are potentially burning bridges before you have the chance to make them, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure that as you are networking, as you are going to events, as you are giving your business cards, as you are setting up teas, as you are doing everything you can do to, create connections. As you are creating these connections, you're doing it both laterally and you're doing it vertically. And sometimes the people that you meet that have been in their positions for 20 years, who are the CEOs of multiple companies, they're looking for people that have the skill set and have the knowledge of people that you've met laterally. And so that gives you an opportunity to connect those two parties. And that gives you an opportunity to not only strengthen your relationship with the people that are above you, but also strengthen the relationship with the people that are at the same level as you. Is everybody understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just like a personal antidote about the importance of doing that, I find all the time as I'm getting a lot of opportunities, which is wonderful, but I find all the time as I get all these opportunities that I'm often in a position where I'm talking with CEOs, I'm talking with presidents, I'm talking with people that have so much life experience, so much business experience, and they're looking for someone who maybe has, I don't know, like tech experience, or someone that's they're looking for someone that has a specific coding experience. And I recall, I think it was like a few months ago, I was introduced, like I had a colleague who's multiple years ahead of me, who had a colleague who had a mentee who was looking for someone that had the exact skill set. Can you hear me? Okay. Who was looking?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Who was looking for someone who had skill sets that were not really exactly the ones I had, but I knew a few people that would fit the bill of what they were looking for. So I put the connection in. And while on one hand, it's like, oh man, I wish I could like fill in that gap. On the other hand, me connecting these two parties has strengthened my relationship with both the person I connected to the opportunity and the relationship of the person that the opportunity was then connected to, and the mentors of the person I connected. And so it's facilitating business opportunities for me and my company with all of them, because they know that not only do I know a lot of things, I have a vast network that can then connect people to the opportunities that they need, if that makes sense. So sometimes when you're networking, it often seems like it's a me, 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 me. But when you take that approach where you always just make it about yourself first, one, it can come off kind of desperate, which is not something you want when you're networking. But two, it can be short-sighted because, again, as a young professional or as a professional in any capacity, you're not necessarily only just building for today, you're building for the duration of your career. And so when you're networking, again, you're building a bridge that will last you, I don't know, until you no longer need it, which might be 5 years, might be 50 years, who knows? But continue to network laterally, vertically, and even with people that are quote unquote below you in terms of their career and their perspectives, because you never know the type of connections that you'll need one day. So do we have any questions on that first aspect? No?
Does anybody have questions? None yet, ma'am. None yet.
I have. Okay. So do I type or do I speak? Which?
Please just speak. I want this to be very interactive.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I just don't want the noise in my background. Okay, anyway, so on this networking issue, I've kind of noticed that even when you desire to, keep in touch with people, if you're always bringing up career, stay there, your career, you guys are pursuing similar careers or something, it gets boring along the line. So like, how do you spice up, how can somebody spice up the person's networking ability to ensure that the people you want around you, that they're always around you? I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yes, I do. And that's
Even
actually
if
a
they're
really
not like
wonderful
your
question.
best of friends or
So when I look at networking, the same way you treat your friends. And you know that when you have your different friends, you don't always talk about one thing. But when it's been, say you have a friend you haven't talked to, I don't know, for a few months, but you'll see something, whether it's an article, whether it's a just something random that recalls to mind something that you guys had a conversation about before. That's usually how I connect with people again, if that makes sense. So it's like, say, when I go to conferences, and this is actually something that I was going to talk about a little bit later, but I always try to keep things on my person or keep items of conversation that can be conversation starters. So back during my doctoral program and even my postdoc, and to an extent, even now, I try to have statement pieces. And so it might be a conversation that might start because someone likes my hair, or someone likes my outfit, or someone liked my bag, or someone liked chocolate, or whatever. Or, we had a conversation about crypto. When I see something, it might be a few months later, that reminds me of the conversation I talked with that person. That's what I use to follow up. So at a conference, like I'll have a conversation, we'll exchange business cards, and I'll usually write on the back of the business card what exactly we discussed. So that way, when I email them a few days later, and if I go to a conference and it ends on a weekend, I usually try to then email them the Wednesday after the conference, because Monday and Tuesday, they're usually swamped with work they weren't able to do while they were at the conference. And I'll usually then try to email them that Wednesday or Thursday, just kind of reminding them about the things we discussed. And then following up a few weeks later, again, reminding them about things that we discussed, because you want to feed these relationships. And with networking, if you're always asking someone like, hey, I'm looking for a job, do you have one? And that's the only time you ever you've ever talked with them, then your relationship's not going to be strong. But when you guys get a chance to speak, if you're speaking about a variety of things that you both are interested in, then it makes that conversation easier, and it makes building that relationship easier. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know it can be, especially at the beginning, can be really awkward to do, because at first it can feel very disingenuous. It can feel very planned, but especially with networking professionally, you know that you have to keep those relationships up to date. And one of the things that I do, especially on holidays, so on the International Day of the Men or whatever, International Men's Day, International Women's Day, Christmas, different holidays like that, where people are usually at home, I usually would just send them a greeting message, or especially if I have nothing else to say, just, I hope that you have a Merry Christmas, or I hope that you have, a wonderful day. I hope that, everybody might not recognize the work that you're doing, but I appreciate and see the hard work. And, being able to facilitate some of the connections in that way. So that way it's not a, hello, Sa, how are you doing, Sa? I thought about you, Sa. Because then it's just like, okay, you thought about me for what? But if you use a holiday, then it can be okay, you're sending out this, and it can facilitate a time for a conversation, or even a time to meet, based off of those little connections that you can do. So I hope that still answers your question a bit more fully.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the next thing is and again, this seems very basic, but be kind to everyone. And when I'm saying be kind, being kind and being nice are not the same thing. And when I'm saying being kind does not mean that someone is treating you disrespectfully and you accept their disrespect. Because being kind also means being kind to yourself, and knowing what you should and would, knowing what you are willing to deal with. But when I'm saying being kind, it's kind of knowing that, again, you don't know who is connected to who. You don't know how people will grow in their positions, what type of opportunities they will get. And you, again, do not want to burn bridges before you have the chance to build them. And there's some bridges, they're going to burn, and you could set kindling to them because they're not bridges that you want. But one of the things that I'm realizing, especially as I'm living in all of these different places, is this world is very, very small. And when you, because there's some days where you're just not in the mood to deal with anybody else's stuff. But in those days where you're not in the mood to deal with anybody else's stuff, you have to kind of check yourself, because you do not want to create a situation for yourself professionally that will come back and harm you. And when I'm saying be kind, and again, that includes being kind to yourself, understand that with every action, there is a reaction. Understand that with anything you do, so if you decide you want to, sleep your way to the top, you can do that, but understand that there will be consequences for those actions. If you decide you don't want to sleep your way to the top, understand that there will be consequences for those actions. And in all, make sure you are being authentic to yourself. And I don't know if what I'm saying necessarily is making sense, because it on one hand, it seems very simple. On another hand, it seems very hard, because especially as a young professional woman, you are going to be confronted, and you probably are confronted with all types of actions and behavior on a regular basis that will probably get on your nerves more time than not. And there are times where, you want to, somebody is treating you in one way, you would prefer to just sit there and cuss them out. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but understand that if you do that, that might have repercussions in the future that you cannot yet see. And also understand that if you don't do that, there might be repercussions for that action that you might not yet see. So you kind of need to be very discerning in what actions you take in your kindness, especially in your kindness to yourself. Because if you're in an environment where you're constantly being harassed, where you're constantly being put down, where you're constantly being treated poorly, you being nice and just sitting there and taking it is not being kind to yourself. You being nice and saying nothing does not necessarily create an environment that's conducive for you or others to work. So in this being kind, it's like with all these different actions that you are taking, understand that sometimes there's a cost, and sometimes that cost is something you can live with, and sometimes that cost is something you cannot live with. But when you are being kind to yourself and you're being authentic to who you are, understand that in this navigation, it can be difficult, and the answers are not always clear cut. You guys get me? Yes?
Can hear you, ma'am.
Well, okay. So the next thing is to work smarter and work hard. So often you will hear that you should work smarter and not harder, but you need to work smarter and you should work hard. So for example, I don't know what everybody's different fields on this call are, but I know that often with almost any type of work, there are bottlenecks in your workflow. There are places where, as you are working, you'll get to a place where you're moving along, you're moving quickly, you're like, oh, yes, you're in your flow. And then you have a particular task that you might have to do that just slows everything down. When you hit those tasks, that these are called bottlenecks, when you hit these bottlenecks in your workflow, when you find ways to alleviate those bottlenecks or reduce those bottlenecks, you're working smarter. But then because your workflow is better, you're able to also work very hard. And in this hard work, in this smart work, you learn something that can then be talked about when you are networking, can then be talked about in these conversations that you have with your peers or with all of these people that are in your life. You might learn skills that can then be leveraged as you are positioning yourself, because hard work and smart work gets noticed. And it might not necessarily be noticed today, because you'd say you start doing something yesterday and it's hard work, just manifests and you're like, oh my goodness, I've found my bottleneck, I've alleviated this bottleneck, and now I'm glorious. it might not work like that overnight. It might be something that you're working very diligently towards. And because you're working very diligently towards this, you know, it gets noticed. You get more opportunities because you can handle more on your plate than maybe others of your same background and qualifications can. And if I give an example of, just my own life, when I started my doctoral program, I was using citation managers and I was like, yay, I'm using these citation managers. I'm great. And then because of my workflow, I was able to do a lot more than other graduate students could, which then gave me an opportunity to do more research and get more opportunities and have more mentors. But then when I was doing my postdoc, I noticed that one of my major workflow issues, one of my major bottlenecks was doing the results section for my manuscripts. And I would find myself making tables and taking like forever to make these tables because it was very tedious, it was very annoying. I hated doing it, but then these tables would be like 3-page tables and just take up all my life. And it was a significant bottleneck in my workflow. It was a significant place where when I was working, it would stem it. Well, I found a way to allow my workflow to flow, to reduce that bottleneck. And I had discovered an open source program called R. And from what I learned in R, not only did it help me in my doctoral program or my postdoc, it also was able to help me now as I transitioned outside of academia to being a CEO. And so now, because of this program that I learned then, I've been able to leverage that knowledge into being now the backbone of my companies and being able to now work with multiple organizations because the same workflow that I was able to identify, the same bottleneck I was able to identify for myself was a bottleneck that many companies were then dealing with. So it was like, then that gives me something I can talk about. Then it allows me to position myself. Then it allows me to do a lot more than what I could do previously and take me to a level that before I had addressed this workflow, this bottleneck in my workflow, I could have never imagined. But it was something where I addressed something that was irritating to me. And it turned out it was a frustration to many people. And so the point of that whole story is there are many things that you can utilize where you are now to help position you to where you will be in the future. And sometimes when you stumble across these things, you won't look at it as something that you can leverage from now, but you turn out that you can leverage it because you've been able to address it in your own life. So does this make sense to you guys?
Yes, ma'am, we're good.
Okay. So the next thing is to dress for success, which is something you'll hear a lot. And there's a meme that goes around on social media where it says, your boss told you to dress for success, and now you're in a disciplinary meeting because you dressed up as Wonder Woman. And I personally thought it was hilarious. And so that's why there's a picture of Serena Williams as Wonder Woman. But dressing for success, especially in Nigeria, is very important because the way you dress for success is very contingent on kind of the place where you are and the culture of where you are. Because dressing for success in Lagos or Abuja is not going to look the same as being in Sokoto. And so when you are dressing for success, you really, especially here where we have so much different diversity, we have so much different social norms, we have so much different differences in religion, you want to dress in a way that, again, you are being true to yourself, but you are understanding the context in which you will be perceived. Because if you're in a place where it might be very professional in the States, it might not necessarily be considered professional if you're visiting somewhere in Sokoto. Or if you're somewhere in Abuja, like, what population are you going to be working with? Because you understand that the way that you are perceived in one area that might be considered very professional might not be considered professional if you're in another area. So understanding dressing for success in the context in which you will be working is so important. Just like, one of my regular gripes is women's professional shoes, where often I find women's professional shoes, it's usually heels. But if you have to run from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, you can't always wear heels because one, you might break your ankle. And two, it's not going to be particularly comfortable. But you have to understand that in these different contexts, sometimes you can get away with wearing tennis shoes or ballerina flats. In other contexts, people will kind of judge you for wearing those type of shoes. So again, when you're dressing for success, it's extremely important to take into account the social norms of either the people you will be working with on a particular project or at a particular company, or the culture of where you are, because that dressing for success is different in the different contexts. Just like, again, you can look however you want to look, but understand that if you don't take into account the culture and the context of where you are, the way you are perceived might not position you to where you want to go. And you might be positioned in a way that you don't realize will actually hurt you, because the communities can be small and the world can be small. So you want to make sure that you're culturally appropriate. But you also want to make sure that you're being authentic to yourself. And so this kind of gets into what I mentioned earlier about having pieces that you can kind of have statement pieces, doing different things. So that way, no matter what cultural context you're working in, you can have kind of topics for conversations. And I'm like the queen of networking. So I usually can talk to anybody about anything and it works out well for me. But just, I cannot overstate it enough to pay attention to the cultural context in which you're in, because otherwise you might not be dressing for success and you might not even realize it. So next, we need to talk about communication and the importance of communication, because people often say that they want you to communicate well. And communicating well can mean they want you to communicate well in terms of writing, in terms of getting thoughts across, in terms of speaking, in terms of, and when you're speaking, what population are you speaking to? So it seems very easy to say, okay, we just want you to be able to communicate. But you also need to know who am I communicating with? Who is the audience that I'm communicating to? Because the way that you might talk to the MD of a company is going to be very different than the way that you talk to the driver of the company, or the driver of the MD of the company. And you still need to talk to both, but the way in which you communicate might be very different. The way that you give a presentation to a bunch of CEOs from, I don't know, like some Western countries might be, you might use different examples if you're giving presentations to CEOs from another part of the world. So it's like paying attention when you are trying to communicate to who is my audience? What are they looking to take away from this? What type of examples will really resonate? Because when you're communicating, it's not just I'm saying words, it's also, am I using the language that the other person will understand? Am I framing my examples in a way that the person that I'm communicating to can absorb it? Because communication is a two-way street. And sometimes it's not just the words that you use, but it can also be your tone of voice. It can also be the pitch of your voice. It also can be the accent in your voice. It can also be your body language. What hand are you reaching out with? So you know that if you grab something from your left hand from somebody from this part of the world, they're going to take it as something that's disrespectful. Where if you grab something with your left hand from somebody from, I don't know, like the States or something, they're not gonna blink twice. But that's all part of communication and understanding the audience that you have. Does that make, are you guys following me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because I want y'all to talk to me. It's not just me monologuing here. So Yes, like understanding your audience, understanding how to communicate when someone seems
We're hearing you. We're on.
okay, thank you. Making sure that when you are communicating with the other person, checking in. And that's kind of why I continue to ask, okay, are you guys understanding me? Not necessarily can you hear my voice, but is it resonating? Because if you leave here and it's just like this woman just talked and I don't understand anything she said, then that means I failed at my job to communicate with you the ideas that I'm trying to convey. So it's also making sure that you're checking in with the other person, making sure that you are checking in with your audience to understand where they might not understand, to understand where, okay, they get this at the surface level, but how do we make this deeper? How can we make it usable for your life? And so it's part of this communication is having the emotional intelligence and being able to have these conversations that matter. And yeah, like I feel like I'm rambling, but it's so important to communicate effectively. And this is honestly one of the main ways that I've gotten a lot of the opportunities that I've gotten in my career is because of the way that I've been able to communicate with people, regardless of educational status, places that they've grown up, places that they've lived, different parts of the country, because I try really hard, even when I don't always understand the language, to make sure that the ideas that need to be conveyed are conveyed in a way that makes sense and are usable. So another thing is the importance of continuing to learn, because as you are positioning yourself, you need to continue to listen, not just to the things that are right in front of you or the people that are right in front of you, but listening to the conversations on the street, listening to, I guess, the pulse of the communities that you're in. Because as you are listening, as you are learning, you are creating more things that you can talk about when you are networking, when you're able to continue to further your knowledge. So when an opportunity will come, and opportunities always come, but will you be ready for them? And if you are not ready for them, how can you begin to get ready for them in a way that, again, is true to you? And just because you might have, done all of these other things in the past, what are you doing to further your knowledge today? What are you doing to further yourself for tomorrow? Because as you are continuing to learn, as you are continuing to gain expertise in a variety of different things, in a variety of different fields, you can utilize some of this knowledge that you're gaining in different ways. So if I give you an example, one of the things that I'm learning now is, I don't know if anybody knows the Ethereum chain, but I'm trying to learn how to do smart contracts. And while at this moment, I know very, very little about crypto and very little about some of the coding that goes on with crypto, I listen enough that when someone else is speaking about it, I can follow what they're talking about. I can't necessarily have an in-depth conversation about it, but I can follow enough that if somebody was to ask me something, I can give a fairly decent answer. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you know this too. And, you can spark conversations, you can spark opportunities to again get to know each other. So really, this whole talk is just about ways that you can foster the connections between you and other people, because that is the best way for you to position yourself. Because there's a saying, I don't know if it's a saying, I don't know if it's a phrase, I don't know what it is, but it's not the people that are closest to you that will give you the opportunities that will further your life, but it's kind of, if you have these circles of influence in your life, it's not the ones that are the closest. So it's not your best friends, because your best friends will probably think very similar to you. Your best friends will probably have many of the same connections that you do, and probably, it's kind of monolithic in opportunities and in thought, but it's those people that are more acquaintances, the friends that maybe you only talk to a handful of times in a year. And those friends that you only talk to a handful of times, if you have this breadth of information, you're able to talk with them about a variety of things. They know what you're interested in. They know some of the skills that you have. When they hear something that reminds them of you, they're, you know, if you have a good connection, then they'll send that to you. And again, that's how I often get a lot of my opportunities. It's not my besties. It's not the people that I kick it with on the weekends. It's the people that, you know, maybe on the holidays, I send them a hello message. I might get tea with them once in a while. We'll have a great conversation. We'll follow up every once in a while, like, oh, I haven't heard from you. But those are the people that will usually be the ones that will bring opportunities, new opportunities that you had never thought of, because they know enough to be able to help put you in the rooms that you need to be in. So the last one that I want to talk to, like, that I kind of want to bring up before I get into more of a discussion, is respect. And really, when I'm saying respect, I'm saying recognize the skills that you have, like respect yourself enough to recognize the skills that you have and own them. And I know that it can be so difficult to really look at yourself and recognize what you bring to the table and kind of even have your own elevator pitch about who you are and what you do. But if you don't know what skills you have in these conversations that you're having, in these networkings and positioning yourself, it's like you've done all this work to position yourself. You've done all this work to appear professional. You've done all this research. You've done all this learning. You've done all the things. But if you don't recognize the skills that you have and somebody asks you, oh, well, tell me about yourself, and you have nothing to say, well, then you've kind of just wasted your time with all of that. And it can be very difficult, especially because many women are taught to be humble. We don't always look at what we have. We don't even always recognize what we have. And then when we recognize what we have, we don't want to say, oh, well, I can do this, and this, and this, because then it might feel like we're bragging. And we want to like quietly say, oh, you know, hoping that someone will notice all the work that you do. And again, people will notice that you've done work. But you also kind of have to be your own biggest fan. Still be humble, but do that humble brag. But you got to recognize what you bring to the table. Because if you don't recognize what you bring to the table, when you have an opportunity to lay out that table, you did all of this work to make the table beautiful. But then you're like, well, what do I have to offer? And you have a lot to offer. But no one else can tell you what you have to offer. You have to tell them. And there's one other thing that I want to say before we really do open this up. The importance of mentorship and having mentors that can help you recognize your skills, can help you navigate these spaces. And you don't need to only have one mentor. You can have mentors in many different aspects of your life and many different aspects of your career, and people that can really help kind of guide you. But again, they're not doing it for you because they're not you, but just kind of let you know, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't network in this way. Maybe that's not the best place to go. Maybe you should go to this other place. And I know with all of the people that I have, like all of my mentees, I'm very proud of them, even though mentoring is a lot of work. And so you want to make sure that you have a mentor that genuinely wants to see you succeed and not a mentor that will hold you back. So I'm sure I have a lot more to say, but I would love to hear some of your questions about any of the things I touched on or didn't touch on that are salient for your life.
Hi, everybody. So if we have questions, you can just unmute and then ask your question, then we get to move on, or you put it in the chat box. So if you have a question, please unmute and ask. Let's talk about working smarter and harder, dressing for success, communication, continuing to learn, respect, having mentors. So if you have a question, please do ask before we move on. Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Okay. Sure, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Natasha. It's so good hearing you and listening once again from a colleague. I really want to find out, when you were talking about respect, You said something about being able to also recognize yourself, because I come from a background and I'm someone personally, I'm not used to talking about what I do unless I am asked. So just having a sort of modest appearance without sounding so braggadocious. And I know I really do a lot, and I really do a lot that I don't even put on the online space that so many people don't know about. Like, I've worked with a lot of international organizations, but I don't talk about them. And sometimes you could be just misread. It's just people that are close to me that know what I do. And maybe if I'm asked, if I'm given an opportunity to talk about it. So how can you do that without probably still putting up a balance without being too seeking, attention seeking, sort of, or you're trying to put out yourself out there? I don't know if you get my question.
I understand your question perfectly.
Okay, thank
And
you.
for one, I want to thank you for asking, because this is something that actually a lot of research has found that women have a lot of difficulty kind of saying, like, look, these are some of the things I do. So what I always recommend is when you're looking at your skills that you have, you can probably illustrate examples of when you've done these different things. And I know what I often do. And again, as I've gotten older, I'm getting a lot better at just being like, look, I've done this, 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 and this. But you can add the experiences. So you can say, well, look, I'm really great at communicating. And then you can give different examples of different work that you've done that have shown and demonstrated the ways that you have that skill. Does that make sense? So it's not you bragging, but it's you saying, well, look, I can do X, Y, and Z. And these are the experiences that I've had that support what I'm saying. Like these are, and you can tell it in the form of a story where you can say, oh, well, once I had to deal with this situation, and utilizing the experiences that you've had, be able to contextualize what you're saying. I don't know if I'm too vague.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, because it's a very important question, and it's something that a lot of women have difficulty with because we are not taught. We're taught that if we talk about our accomplishments, then we're bragging and we're not humble, and that we're bringing undue attention to ourselves. But at the same time, in a professional setting, you are expected to do those things. But if you do those things, then you're viewed negatively. But one way that you can balance that is say, look, I've been able to do X, Y, and Z, and use your experiences to support that. So it's not you bragging. You're giving an explanation. You're not tooting your own horn. You're simply laying out the fact that for these things, you have this experience. You're giving the experiences that you have. And you're telling it in a story in such a way that you're explaining what you need to explain and what you need to do. But I also would encourage you, especially start with your friends and with the people that know you well. Just start with your little elevator pitch about some of the stuff that you've done. And it can be fun stories. It can be however you want to do it. But if you start with the people that you're comfortable with, or even if you start asking them, look, can you tell me what you think of me? And again, the people that you trust and you're close to, can you tell me what your skills are? Because sometimes those people that are the closest to you, the way that they see you is so different than the way that you see yourself. That can be an amazing starting point to get more comfortable with owning the amazing things that you have done.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Natasha?
Yes.
Right, okay, so we have one more question. Someone says, Nika Gatha says, talking about having a mentor, in what areas can one seek mentorship? Can one particular mentor suffice?
I always recommend having more than one mentor. And again, you can have mentors in any aspect of your life that you want. So many people will have like mentors in faith, where whenever they're going through tough times, they have those people that they go to that will give them advice that is based on their faith. So that way they know how to take that into their life. Some people have mentors in academia. Some people have mentors in terms of business. So some people have mentors in terms of like being a parent, where it's like, look, this person is a parent, I'm a parent, I'm going to go to them when my children are driving me crazy to be like, okay, how do I manage this? Not everybody can be your mentor at all. And honestly, not everybody should be your mentor. Because you'll find that a lot of people will give you advice and you're looking at them like, look, I don't know why you're giving me advice because you're not where I want to be. But when you have a mentor that's someone that's in a position that either you want to be or they've been in a position that you want to be, they know better how to navigate that space that you're walking into. So I recommend having more than one mentor, but you don't want to have like thousands of mentors because one, being a good mentee is not easy. Being a good mentor is not easy. And not everybody can be a good mentor. Because to be a good mentor, there has to be a certain level of self-reflection. To be a good mentor, there has to be an understanding that the person that you're mentoring is not a young you. And so, you're not trying to force them into a life that you think they should go into, but try to help them to the life they want to go into. So again, not everybody is cut out to be a good mentor. And I really recommend that you have different types of mentors that can give you different perspectives in life and give you different perspectives on what you're going through. And somebody that might be your mentor right now might not be the person that's going to be the same type of mentor 10 years from now, because you'll be in a different place and they'll be in a different place and they still might mentor you, but they might not be the main person you're going to. Does that make sense?
Ms. Agatha, is that fine? Are you fine with the answer? Let me see. I'm sorry, Nneka Agatha. Ma'am, are you okay? Yes. All right, ma'am. She says she's fine with the answer, so I think we can go on.
So do we have any more questions?
I think none for now, but if one comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay, because it's actually like 10 minutes till 10. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to continue going on. But I really hope that this talk was actually helpful and useful for your everyday life in trying to position yourself professionally and otherwise as, young African women. Because it's not always easy, but it's definitely worth it. So I'm done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natasha. Thank you so much. That was an enlightening session. Please, can we celebrate Dr. Natasha? Thank you so much, ma'am. If you were blessed or if you had an insight from that teaching, please do celebrate her. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Natasha. Thank you. Wow, what a way to end. What a way to end Showtime Conference. Tonight has been really, really awesome. We had two amazing doctors speak to us, and I do believe that we were enriched in one way or another. Please, if you do have any question and you want to ask now, that's fine. But if you want to write us inbox, you can either send her a message. I'm going to drop their handles, their Instagram handles right here, so you can reach out to Dr. Adana and Dr. Natasha. Let me do that right now. Okay, for Dr. Adana, here we go. Please do go follow them and you can gain more insight to what they do. Okay, so this is for Dr. Adana. Just a minute, people, just a minute. Okay. So for Dr. Natasha, you can follow her consulting firm at Vitalera. Yeah. And then her personal account. No. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. Dr. Natasha, Dr. Dana, I am super, super grateful. It's been an awesome night. It's been a beautiful conference. And I want to say a big thank you to our guests. A big thank you to every participant. You made this happen. You made this possible. And Melody Thompson is grateful. The Process Woman is grateful. To our team members, to the women in the community, I'm saying a big thank you. And we can't wait for the next conference. We do hope that it's going to be bigger, it's going to be better, and who knows, we may even see our guests again. Thank you so much. Indeed, it was really enriching. Thank you all so much. Do have a great night. And you can also follow us on, thank you so much, Dr. Adana. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all social media platforms at The Process Woman. If you have any questions, for further inquiries or whatever, please do write us. We are grateful. Do have a great night. We love you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Natasha.